Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome. It's beautiful. I cannot believe how beautiful it is out.
Yes.
And it's wonderful, and I'm glad everybody's here. Glad to see your faces. To share this Sunday morning with all of us. And I'm Reverend Kim Haley. Just in case I forget who I am during the course of this, zip out of here. I wonder if there's any newcomers here today. Anyone that's never been here? Well, hello.
Hi.
Can you tell us your name?
Yeah, I'm Kelly, and I actually came last Sunday, but I was a little bit late because I got lost. But anyway.
See, things happen.
I live in Milwaukee.
Well, welcome, Kelly.
I've been watching everybody on Facebook, so I kind of feel familiar.
Yay, well, thank you. I'm happy that you persisted. All right. Anyone else? Any other newcomers that never been here before or not for a while? Okay. Well, so the gang's all here. And so this is the year 2023 that's been deemed the year of living from one's core values. Can you hear me okay? No? Okay, louder?
Yeah, stay in that mic.
Stay in the mic, okay. This has been.
Hey, Kim?
Yeah.
We did want to welcome Joseph Nelson on Zoom because he hasn't been here for a while.
Yeah, I saw Joe. I said hi to him. Okay, this Joe is back. Joe used to come here regularly and he used to do our music. Morning, Joe.
And Sarah's back, and Amy's back.
Sarah and Amy. Yeah. We got a whole nice group of returning people. This is great. Okay, where was it? I was saying, this is the year of our core values, and we're living from our core values, and that the themes for this month are humor, honesty, and hopefulness. So my hope is I get through all of this with ease. Now our musician today is John Lalonde, and what we usually do is have John play it for the meditation. So John's going to play some music for us, wonderful music, and then we'll go into a little bit of silence, and then I'll bring you back. So close your eyes if you like, just relax and comfortable. as we continue to flow with the music in our hearts and minds, we open and relax and allow what is. And I know today we're going to have wonderful talks, spiritual thought, main speaker. And we're going to leave here feeling joy and lightness. Take a deep breath and let it go. Thank you, John. That was beautiful. All right, we're going to go right into the spiritual thought. So John's already seated and ready to go.
So much joy. Well, of the themes, humor, honesty, and hopefulness, I wanted to talk about humor. And I'm going to start out with a couple of definitions. One is the one we're familiar with, and that is the condition of being amusing. There are other definitions that deal with mood or state of mind, and we're probably more familiar with that type of definition of humor from movies, where someone says, "Oh, you're in a bad humor today," that sort of thing. So not our spouses don't say that, but bad old movies. So what is the link between humor and spirituality? Why is this a theme this month? So a couple of basic things that may give some direction to think about this, that humor and comedy may be an evolutionary coping mechanism to deal with what may seem like an otherwise dangerous world. Humor breaks the tension when there is a flight or fight response triggered, and it allows us to take ourselves less seriously, to calm down. And I read that the purpose of the court jester in medieval times was to lighten the load for the ruler and the court at that point in time. So humor is a subjective experience, that what one person finds funny, another person might find offensive, and that our reaction to humor is reflects our life experience, our consciousness, our beliefs. And humor can cause a shift in perspective when humor triggers some other new thought or new interpretation for us. And a lot of comedians, that's really how they keep an audience. So the element of surprise is something that is in that shifting of perspective, that you just don't see the answer coming, or you don't see the punchline coming, or the meaning that they're after is just new and different and kind of shifts us. So in that way, humor is a teaching tool. And so when I saw these themes for this month, I have heard that Ernest Holmes is a very humorous person. I've read Ernest Holmes, and for those who are new or not real familiar with Ernest Holmes, he's the founder of the religious science movement that informs a lot of what is talked about here at the Positive Living Center. So I wanted to know more about Ernest Holmes and humor, so I Googled it. And it led me to an advertisement for a book that was coming out in the fall of this year. And what it is a compilation of Ernest Holmes' talks that he gave at Asilomar, which is a big conference center down in Monterey, Pacific Grove area. And so I sent an email to the author of that book. He's not really the author, he's the compiler, but he also developed an index, a subject index, and I've gotten the book, and it's very interesting. The advertisement promised insight into the human and humorous Ernest Holmes. So Reverend Mark Gilbert is the person that compiled this, and it's entitled Ernest Holmes at Asilomar, Lectures and Classes from Asilomar in the 1950s. So when I Googled him, I got a response from him. And what he said to me was that Holmes used a lot of humor in his talking, but this book, Holmes used a lot of humor in his talks, but this book is a serious one with deep metaphysical issues. And I think I conveyed in my email to him that I was looking for an Ernest Holmes joke book, which I guess honestly, if that's one of our themes, I was. But I wanted to understand his humor. So I've started reading it, and it is deep and serious, but it's really clear he is very warm. He is very humorous in a dry and subtle way, using humor, as just kind of a way of connecting with people and a way of helping shift our perspective on some issues. He gave a few, this website advertising the book gave a few tidbits of his humor from the book. And there was one example where somebody came up to Ernest Holmes at one of his, after one of his talks and said to him, "That's a dangerous thing you said last night." And Ernest Holmes responded, "Well, tonight I'm going to skate on even thinner ice because I know I can swim." So you just kind of get that, oh yeah, this, you have to give it a little thought, but yes, it's there. He had another example in the book that really intrigued me, or in this website about what was in the book. And so I looked through the book to try to find it. It's thick reading. I'm not done with it by any stretch. But I was able to find this section. And he explained that when early in his career, in his research, he was researching the great religions of the world and the revelations and sort of the meanings and the stories and things like that. And what he was looking for was commonality and consistency within the religion. So not comparing the religions, but within the religion, were there contradictions? Were there commonalities? And he was looking for a unitary belief that would hold it all together, a common thread, if you will. So he explained that he took notes while he was doing his research, and when he would be taking notes on a certain religion and came across a contradiction, he would just erase that review, that section, that religion. So he was using a pencil. This was probably before 1950, and very quaint. But he would just erase it. And so more of his humor when he said, by the time he was done, there were so many inconsistencies and contradiction that the pencil was dull and the eraser used up. And what his criticism was there was no unity in the back of these religions, meaning that he did not see the religions he studied having the unity of God and human. And so he was using his humorous educational style to kind of teach that the religious science belief that there is one God, the highest God and the innermost God as one God. He told a kind of a funny, brief sentence to illustrate this, and he said, there is no God who will tell Jeremiah, "Jerry, you do this," and then turn to Isaiah and say, "Izzy, you do that," which was contradictory to what he had said to Jerry. And he concluded this criticism with this pithy statement: "Let us thank the God that is, that the God that's believed in isn't.
Yes.
So that dry, humorous way to shift our state of mind, teaching there is one God, the Most High and the God within, one God, the very same.
Yes.
And so it is.
I like what Ernie had to say. Truly. All righty, well, that's, there's a lot of things about humor and honesty and hopefulness. And I think that when we're honest, sometimes a lot of humor just cuts loose. We find a commonality amongst ourselves. Anyway, now what are we gonna have some music, John?
Yes, we are.
You're gonna just have to stay here for the whole time.
I told Sandy when she was doing the schedule, I'm gone the rest of this month, or every Sunday this month, and I'm okay doing the two things, the spiritual thought and music on the same day. We'll see.
I thought she was punishing you, I wasn't sure.
I am gonna play with a backing track. This is a Clint Goss backing track. Clint Goss makes backing tracks for Native American flutes. The title of this is Finding It All. And so.
Because I get into that nice mood,
That's beautiful.
but then you might not be able to hear me. So, can you still hear me in the back? Okay, good. I know, because I sit in the back sometimes and I'm going, I can't hear. Speak up. That was beautiful. That was so nice and easeful. Okay, now we have, I don't know how to introduce this person. He's getting up already. He's gonna try and shut me up. The wonderful Reverend Bob Hand to do our makeup.
And I want to start out, I've said this before, but how blessed I am to be able to give the talk. And I particularly mean that about the talk. I mean, John has to work a lot harder. He's beautiful music he provided, but he also gave the spiritual thought. And I mean, it's implied if you're giving a thought, you have to think. To give a talk, we all know you don't have to think to talk, so I've got it a lot easier from that standpoint. Every month we have 3 themes, and generally I pick one of those to speak about. I mean, usually I figure I can barely figure out one theme, much less 3. But this time I'm going to say at least something about all of the themes. And I want to start with hopefulness. Now I know Angie's on Zoom here. Excuse me, it's probably 20 years ago or so now. I was learning to be a minister, and Angie did the training for us. And one of the things he taught to us as ministers was not to be hopeful. We were not to be hopeful. Now, that doesn't imply he was saying anything about hopeless. Although, to be totally transparent, when it came to me learning to be a minister, the term hopeless might have come up a time. But I mean, in general, it wasn't hopeless. But the thing is, as a minister, you do spiritual mind treatment. When somebody asks you to do a treatment about something, you can't think, well, that thing might happen. I believe it could happen. I hope it'll happen. You have to know it will happen. If you don't know you're right, then you're wrong. And so that's why being hopeful within a spiritual mind treatment doesn't fit. Now, last year, John gave a spiritual thought where he talked about hopefulness as a positive aspect, basically as a beginning. Being hopeful puts us in this positive place where we can then go on to the knowing. And so hopefulness can lead us to being positive. But I'm not here to talk about being positive. I'm going to talk about honesty instead. Honesty is a tricky thing. Doesn't sound that way, does it? But it's really tricky. I can sit up here and tell you something that I believe is true. Now later you could find out I'm wrong. It wasn't true at all. And yet, as long as I believed it was true when I said it, I'm being honest, right? Yes. Now, if I didn't bother really checking into it, maybe there was plenty of information around that it wasn't true. But I chose to believe it anyway, and I tell you, well, I'm still being honest because it's what I believe. Honesty has had a very strange relationship with religion. I mean, we've all read over the last few years about priests and bishops lying about things, right? Now, often priests were lying about things to protect themselves. But the bishops typically knew they were not being honest, but they were protecting the church, right? By not saying these things, by denying these things, they were protecting the church. And protecting the church was more important than being honest. And yet, for many people, lying is considered a sin. And you know, for decades, not decades, thousands of years, priests have collected things for the gods, right? You've got a problem, you give food to the temple, you give, if it's really bad, you give jewels, you give valuable things to the temples. Are those going to the gods? The priest would tell us they're going to the gods, but were they? Were they being honest? Mark Twain wrote an interesting short story about religion and honesty called Heaven and Hell. It's kind of long for a short story, so I'm going to shorten this short story a lot. There were two older sisters, not necessarily as old as I am, but old. And their niece came and stayed with them. Their niece had a child. Their niece had got this deadly disease. The doctor said she's not going to have long to live. Her child couldn't come in to see her because then the child would get the disease. And the niece told her aunts, I know I'm dying. I only have a short time to live, but I'm okay with that, as long as I know my child's okay. It would break my heart if I knew she wasn't well and strong. And so each day the aunts would come in and tell her what her child's doing. And then something happened and the child died. What are they going to do? It's a sin. They're very religious. They know it's a sin to lie. Do they lie to their niece, or do they tell her child's okay? And they can't help themselves. They know they shouldn't lie. They go in and they have to tell her that things are okay. So they make up stories about her child for a few days, and then she dies. They die and go to heaven. Now, here's the angels to judge them. They have to confess the lies they told. And that's where Mark Twain ends the story. Do they go to heaven because of how compassionate they were? Do they go to hell for the sin of lying? Honesty is a tricky thing. Now, Sandy told us last week about being honest to ourselves, right? Honest about our actions. That was about our actions. Or we do things and we tell ourselves they're good, but are we being honest with ourselves about that? But what about spiritual honesty? Are we honest with ourselves about our beliefs? So let's go back to this thing about honesty. We believe something. We believed it for years, but we've never given it a lot of thought. Now we take a class with LJ. We find out, you know what? That doesn't seem right at all. I was wrong all of those times. So if I was wrong all those times, was I honest about my spiritual beliefs? Or if I change my mind and now I believe something else, am I being honest about my spiritual belief? If we have doubts, do we recognize those? Do we tell ourselves that? Where is our spiritual honesty involved? Let's say a minister right here, a minister comes up and says things to us, and you don't believe those things are true. What's your spiritual honesty tell you to do? Now, let's be clear, that's not going to happen when I'm talking because I'll always be right, but some of our other ministers could get things wrong on occasion. Sorry, Sorry, folks. But, Bob Dylan wrote a song. He wrote many songs, of course, but one song he wrote was about how absolutely certain he was about everything he believed. Each of the verses goes on about how absolutely certain. In fact, one of them says, good and bad, I defined those terms quite clear, no doubt, somehow. But each verse goes, but I was so much older then. I'm younger than that now. So I think I'm old enough to know the really piercing questions about spiritual honesty, but apparently I'm young enough to not really know the answers. So I can't be hopeful. I don't really have the answers to spiritual honesty, so that leaves us with humor. Humor seems like kind of a silly topic for spiritual thought. And one thing, when I was thinking about humor, this is totally off the topic of spirituality, but I've got to say this. I've mentioned this to Jean a few times. In the movies, it's the bad guys that are always happy, right? I mean, not at the end. At the end, they get caught and put in jail and all. But up till then, the good guys are always serious. We've got to solve this problem. We've got to catch these people. They're yelling at each other. You messed up. What are the good guys doing? They're having a great time. Yes, they're robbing people and beating people, but they're happy and they're joking and they're laughing. I mean, bad guys have a laughter named after them, right? Maniacal laughter. The good guys don't have laughter named after them. There's no good guy laughter. I don't know. It just seems strange to me. But back on topic. And movies, though, that have stories, and I can relate. So that reminds me of the stories of the Bible. In the New Testament, Jesus is described as loving children, right? And even beyond that, Jesus says you must be childlike. You must be like children in order to enter the kingdom of heaven. He says, look at these children. You must be childlike in order to enter the kingdom of heaven. And yet, and I mentioned this to Angie again decades ago, and yet I don't remember anywhere in the New Testament that it talks about Jesus laughing. It didn't talk about him joking around, having a good time. Is Jesus childlike? I mean, he's in all of it. He's serious. He's having a hard time. He gets upset with people. You never read Jesus told a joke and was laughing. His mother, when they were at a wedding and they ran out of wine, she asked him to help it, and he turned water into wine. Now, if he's childlike, maybe you're not supposed to say this, I don't know, but it seems to me that one time when his disciples are drinking wine, he'd turn it into water as a prank. If I was a child, I'd do that. But religion is serious business. And why wouldn't it be? I mean, our life, by most religions, is basically a test, right? What you do, by some religions, what you do in this life will determine who you are in the next life. Are you going to be reborn as an enlightened human or as a bug? I'm not sure which of those is supposed to be best, quite frankly, but this is a test. And for other religions, it's not just a test, it's the final exam. And you don't get to study beforehand. From the moment you're born, the test starts. Are you going to have an eternity of torture and pain, or an eternity of joy and bliss? You're being tested right now. And you know the worst part of the test? They don't tell you how long it is. They don't tell you, you have this time and then the test ends. They can come along right now and say, oh, test is over, right now. Did you win? Did you pass the test or did you fail? I mean, that's serious business. How can you be joking about religion when you're in this final exam for eternity? Where in the world am I going with this talk? Got too excited with that. So, I know. I do remember. So I was thinking that humor maybe in spirituality is primarily for ministers. Right? It's our job to get up here and give you people spiritual wisdom, right?
That's right.
Yeah. You people, right there. Spiritual wisdom. Now, I've been getting spiritual wisdom for some time in a talk. And sometimes as a minister, you have to keep talking louder to be heard over the snoring. Because if you just get up here and, okay, this is how it is, and this is truth, people are going, you know, it's hard to fall asleep in the middle of laughing. And I'm not a comedian. I know some of you would dispute that. I am really trying, you might not believe it, to slip in a little spiritual wisdom here. But the humor keeps people involved. You know, I found that out about, even I did some teaching at the college level. If people aren't involved with you, if they're not connecting with you, I don't care what you say, they're not going to learn it. You got to keep them involved, and that's what humor does for a minister. It helps us connect with all of you, keep you awake, keep you listening, and maybe you'll hear that little bit of spiritual truth that slips in. But there's another thing for ministers and practitioners that I think is true about humor. We get up here regularly and tell you about the miracles that occur with our treatments that we do. And believe me, I've seen miracles. I've seen us get together and give spiritual mind treatments. You know, you ask for it, Joe puts it out, and people be cured, people get opportunities in their lives that they never thought would happen, and it's beautiful. But I tell you, 20 years of doing this, and you people have been ministers, practitioners for a while, you know this. We don't say it up here, but in 20 years of doing this, you also know that you give treatments and the people still don't get better. Close friends, family members have continued to be ill. They've continued to go downhill. They've passed away. They've died right as we're all giving the best treatments we can. This is the reality of life that we have. And as a minister or practitioner, you get up here and you talk about this power, this incredible power from divine spirit, and then you walk over here and step off and trip and stumble and you look like a fool, and you have to be able to laugh at yourself. You've got to be able to laugh at yourself. And I think that's a key for all of us. To know this is our place in the universe as humans. That we have this incredible, awesome power that we get in our direct connection with divine spirit. We also have the silliness, the foolishness, the ignorance of being human.
Yes.
And that's what makes us unique in this world.
I just tripped. I just tripped. I was just thinking, there was something that you said, Bob, and it triggered this thought, this cascade of thoughts in my mind. And one of them was a comedian who said that there was this choice that it was during the medieval times, they had a choice between having torture and death or cake. And the person went, oh, cake, I'll take cake. Some people had to think about it. Anyway, I now have to say that was wonderful. I loved a lot of what you said. I loved most everything you said. I liked it all. Okay, we now have, I'm going to ask for somebody to come up. I need two, we're going to do the offertory. So I need two people, and it looks like this. Yes, I'll do it. I need one person. Thank you, Barney. Anybody else that'd like to come up and do it? Or partially like to do it?
Come on, bud. Get it.
Voila. Okay, and then I'm gonna say, we're gonna say the offertory.
Okay.
All right, divine
Divine
love
love
flowing through me, blesses and increases all that I give and all that I receive.
You're
Okay.
welcome.
Yay. Page one. Oh, and you know, those people on Zoom, you know that we have the tithe by going into the iFocus, and I think it's Missy who puts all the information about how you can donate and help us keep the lights on and the air conditioner or the heat, whatever is going on. That helps us, and we truly appreciate it. And it says email here. Oh yeah, on the email that you get, it has easy instructions on how to donate funds to PLC too, so. Okay.
Here you are, boss.
Thank you. Put that there. So do we have any announcements today? Does anybody, yes, Joe? I'll get out of the way. I have my little box.
It's okay, I could have gone around that, that's all right. Good morning. That was fabulous, Bob. Oh, my God. It was just, I don't know where to start. That was beautiful. Well said. This Wednesday night, I'll be here at the sanctuary from 6 to 7-ish with the men's group. All men are invited. Join me here. I'll also have Zoom up for those who can't make it here physically, but look forward to talking to guys on Wednesday night. Thank you.
Oh, yes.
The one on iFocus.
I hate to bring this up when we're talking about humor, but so many young people here, but don't you know this is Grandfather's Day today?
Today's Grandfather's Day?
It's Grandfather's Day?
I know y'all too young for that, but
Oh.
the last time I counted, I had 40-some grandchildren.
That's a lot of grandchildren.
Started out with 5. They used to accuse me of being Catholic, Mormon, Baptist.
I don't know what that was.
Overcrowding the world.
Well, happy Grandfather's
Well,
Day.
happy Grandfather's Day to you
And then
and all
I
grandfathers.
inherited some more here. So, anyway, I don't want to offend anybody, but happy Grandfather's Day.
Yes.
And,
I don't think anybody would be offended by that.
well, they're pretty young.
We all have to have at least 2.
That's right, there you go.
That's right.
Well, thanks for that announcement. Hi, Sandy. Wait. I'm getting exercise.
Sierra Art Trails is right around the corner. Catalogs are available at Gallery Row. And I will have some also, I have one today, but Sierra Art Trails, if you don't know what it is, it's an open art studio tour. This is the 20th year, and happy to answer any questions later.
That's great.
Time does really fly. Okay, come on up.
If anybody hasn't told you today, it's okay to wear white after Labor Day. You got white, thank you. Just really quickly, I did talk to Sandy and I kind of got a thumbs up. I didn't get a green light, but I guess it's okay to ask for forgiveness later. But I have a list of people, not people, but it's gonna be full soon, hopefully, of game night. If anybody wants to do game night here, I have games at home. I hope people bring games. Balderdash, love Balderdash. Pictionary, I have Pokino, anything.
Do you have Twister?
I do have Twister, but I don't know if I want to ruin my hair. I'm gonna leave it out there. We're gonna have it for a couple weeks and we'll figure out who wants to do it. I don't know when, but it's gonna happen.
Yeah, that sounds like fun. I have a lot of games I can donate to the cause, because I'm always going, we need to have a game night sometime. Yeah, I love Balderdash, because you get to lie. In all honesty, lying can be fun. On purpose. That's for sure. Any more announcements? Okay, then I'm going to announce that our prayer partner this week is John Lalonde. So you can see him after. You can also put things in the frog box if you have a request, you can't stay late or you have to go somewhere. There are papers to write on, and John will be here. We have a room back there that if anybody wants to have a private session can, and please do. And next week is Reverend Joe Bull. He is our main speaker, yes. So now let us do the prayer of protection. The light of God surrounds me. The love of God enfolds me. The power of God protects me. The presence of God watches over me. The energy of God is me. Wherever I am, God is, and all is well. That's fantastic. And now we need to have.
Reverend Kim?
Pardon? Yes. Oh.
Before we close.
Sure.
Next, I had you as the Reverend. 17th?
No, it's changed.
It changed. We switched it because I can't be here. I'm not going to be here. So I'm going to do
No,
it.
it's not. If your iFocus person doesn't know, it's not taken care of.
Oh, well, this is good that you brought it up.
I know, now I understand.
I swear I told her, I swear I did.
Oh, did you?
Honesty.
I don't have a lie detector with me, but I'm sure it's fine.
You know what? It's all good, man.
It's all good.
It's all good. I got it. Thank you.
All right, so we're going to have some music and then we'll have Angie pray us out. How's that? So one more song a beautiful song from John Lalonde. I used to say your last name like Lalonde, but no, I don't.
Angie, you'll want to unmute.
Well, thank you. It is September, but the air conditioner is still on, so I felt like it would be okay to play Summertime.
Thank you, John. That's beautiful. And now I'd like to say, I'm not going to say anything after this because Angie's going to pray us out, but I just want to say everyone have a wonderful, terrific week. Let go, laugh, and enjoy yourself. So lovely to see you.
Thank you.
Angie?
Thank you. Join me in prayer. Wonderful service today, by the way, John and Bob. You guys are awesome. As we go forth this week, we open our hearts to the divine perfection that we are, the dimension of unlimited potential and infinite possibilities. Our nature and the nature of God are one and the same. We are whole and complete and in perfect health. We accept the fact that we are superior to any and all circumstances and conditions that come our way during this physical journey. We are grateful for this divine presence and release this truth of our being, knowing that it is so. And say with me loud and clear, and so. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend.
Thank you.